Good morning, Kale. Rise and shine.
Good morning. Today's video is about it's kind of like a beginner's guide to affordable smart home. So if you're trying to set up your very first smart home and you don't know where to begin, stay tuned and keep watching while I go wash up for a bit. Hey, I'm back. The first question that most people will ask when they're embarking on this smart home journey would be what brand to buy. Yeah, so maybe I can give some of the answers on that based on my own personal opinions and preferences. So of course there's the Philips Hue. Philips Hue is probably one of the pioneers in this consumer market. One of the first companies that actually made DIY smart home automation possible, where you could just pick up a smart bulb from the store, go home, plug it in, and you could kind of start controlling it from your app, right? But they're also one of the most expensive. So if you're looking into doing an affordable smart home, generally I would avoid the Philips Hue. In terms of the setup experience, in terms of the product lineup and all that, it is definitely very good. You do pay for what you get. But there are always cheaper options that I would choose first over Philips. So of course the next brand that I think most people are familiar with is Xiaomi. Xiaomi is probably one of the most popular brand names in this region. I mean everything from vacuum to robot vacuum, water filter, TV, you name it, Xiaomi probably has a product for it. But it can get very confusing under the Xiaomi line because they have a lot of sub-brands, like there's Akara, there's the Mijia app, there's the Yi-Light lineup of lights, etc. So it can get a little bit messy there. But yeah, it is definitely one of the more affordable brand names. Then of course there's Tuya. Tuya, which is the Smart Life lineup that I personally use quite a lot of products from. Tuya is kind of more like an OEM system. They provide the cloud service, but I think for the hardware specifications, it's kind of more open, and there are a lot of people manufacturing different kind of products that are all marked as Tuya compatible. So they will work with, like, say, your Smart Life app, for example, but even though in the app they kind of have a similar look, similar setup, and all work the same, the physical products could all look a little bit different from each other, but they will all work the same actually. Then of course if you go down to, like, say, Challenger, you would see products, or you would see brands like D-Link, TP-Link, S-Tech, and quite a lot of others that also boast their own smart home ecosystem lineup of products. But yeah, I mean, you can buy any one of the above brands. Actually, I think the most important thing that you want to look out for is always the support that they have, whether their products support the Apple HomeKit ecosystem, the Google Home ecosystem, although I think Google recently rebranded it to Nest, but yeah, the Google Home ecosystem, as well as the Amazon Alexa ecosystem. So you'll be looking out for one of these badges that you would see on the product box itself, and this is basically the most important thing that you want to pay attention to. That you could actually tie together multiple products from different brands. So these big name companies, right, all have their own smart speaker lineups. I mean, Google Home has like the Mini, the Max, etc. Even the Nest Home Hub with the screen. Alexa has also a similar lineup of their Echo speakers and hubs. And Apple has the HomePod, which unfortunately is not yet available in Singapore. One thing that I want to remind all of you is that you don't actually need the smart speaker to begin your smart home journey. All you really need is your phone, and you want to start with that most of the time. So while you're looking out for the smart home products that you want to purchase, right, you will also notice that some of the products require a gateway and some work on their own. Basically, usually the ones that work on their own connect to your existing home Wi-Fi network, and the ones that connect to a gateway usually rely on a different way of connecting. Like, for example, Philips uses this protocol called ZigBee, and yeah, there are pros and cons. For example, if you are working with sensors like motion sensor, door sensor, light sensor, etc., a lot of these sensors are placed in locations where they cannot be powered by an external power source, right? So you're going to put in a battery, and if you're running off Wi-Fi, the battery life is going to be like what, I don't know, a couple of days, 2 weeks max. But if you're running something like Z-Wave or ZigBee, right, the battery life can last like 1-2 years, even more. So that's one of the reasons why some people would go with a gateway solution rather than a Wi-Fi based solution. So it really depends on the kind of items that you're installing in the home. Right, okay, so the very first thing that I think most people want to control in their smart home would actually be the air conditioning. For me, I think that's the most important part of the smart home controls that you would want to set up. How I use it personally would be to turn off the aircon, like say an hour or half an hour before I want to wake up in the morning, or it could be that during the middle of the night, the portion where you're falling asleep, you may want to drop the temperature down to be a lot colder, like maybe, I don't know, 20 degrees Celsius or even lower. And then maybe during the night itself, scale up to like 25. And then in the morning, you can shut it off to help you wake up more easily. And this also helps to maybe control the power consumption of the air conditioner. There are big name brands out there that advertise to control your air conditioner, like the Sensible, but those charge a very large premium to do it. And of course, the setup process is a lot easier as well. But I don't think the cost is actually worth it, because the IR controllers that you can buy today can be really, really cheap. So for myself, I bought the Tuya IR controller. It only cost me 14 Singapore dollars, and it connects over Wi-Fi to my home network. And if you place it in a good position, you can easily control the air conditioner in your room. The app is actually very decent, so I don't think it's difficult to set up as well. So if I had to rate it in terms of whether I could teach my 60-plus-year-old mom to do it, I think that the ease of setting up an IR controller is like 5 upon 5. And at $14, it is really cheap. You could potentially buy one for every major room in the house to control the air conditioner and to control any other devices that use IR, which is really helpful. So the one in the hall that I have set up controls the fan, controls the TV, controls the air conditioner, and yeah, if I had any other devices that use IR, for example, maybe a humidifier or something along that line, it could have worked as well. The second thing that I would recommend you to purchase would be a Wi-Fi smart plug. So these little guys cost around 14 Singapore dollars, and I currently have about 2 or 3 around my house. And yeah, they're really convenient because they connect to the Wi-Fi network, and once you plug it in and you plug your electronic device in, you can basically turn it on and off, or you can even schedule the power to go on and off, etc. And all of it is controlled through the app. So again, very easy to set up. I would give it a rating of 5 out of 5. And yeah, it's pretty convenient. I use it to turn off my humidifier in the morning. I use it sometimes to turn off my monitors and one of my fans as well. So of course, the extension to this Wi-Fi smart plug would be the Wi-Fi power strip. So these are a little bit more pricey. I bought mine at around 30 Singapore dollars. But basically, you can imagine 4 Wi-Fi smart plugs together in a row, including some USB ports as well for USB devices. And again, all controlled through the app. So again, ease of installation, 5 out of 5. And at $30 is also pretty cheap. The next item that I would recommend you to purchase would be a smart light bulb. The Philips Hue light bulbs can go for around 80 Singapore dollars per bulb. The last time I checked the price anyway. I personally am using a Xiaomi E-Light. The very first one I received in 2016 as a Christmas gift, it was RGB. In order to install it right, I kind of had to buy a new light fixture, because most of these smart light bulbs first came out using the E27 size bulb, but I think not everybody has an E27 light fixture at home. So yeah, anyway, I bought a light fixture just for it and installed it in my room to replace one of the existing lights. Then I could actually screw in this E-Light. In terms of installation, I did not rate it as high. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5, because there is a high chance that a lot of the existing light fixtures in your home are not E27 based. If they are, then yeah, it's pretty easy. Just screw in the bulb and again use an app to sync to it, and then you'll be good to go. Of course, you don't have to buy the Xiaomi E-Light. A lot of the other brands also have a similar product, like Tuya, Smart Life also have their own smart light bulbs and other smart light products, just that I happen to already own the Xiaomi one, so that's why I'm not changing it again. Anyhow, because they were both ecosystems are compatible with Google Home, it's actually okay for me. So I do have the E-Light app to help set up the light bulb, and the Smart Life app to set up all my other products, right? But they all actually sync back to my Google Home app, which I mainly use to control some of these items. Moving on from the smart light bulb, right, you could also consider getting like a ceiling light or a wall light. But similarly, this would mean like changing the actual light fixture, which you may or may not want to call an electrician in for. You could also buy light strips like the kind I have behind my monitor. These fortunately are very easy to install as well, because they basically connect to USB power. For mine, I bought it for I think less than 20 as well, around like $10-15. So yeah, it's an easy way to have like nice backlighting for your TV, for your monitor, for even around your desk, around your bed, etc. So it's really up to you to get creative of where you want to put these lights. And yeah, for light strips, definitely 5 out of 5. If your home already has lights that are built in, like for example, you have a false ceiling and the lights are already installed very nicely there, and it's very difficult to either change to a socket that's compatible with smart light bulbs or even change the entire light fixture, then your only other option is actually to change the switch itself. So it is possible to change it at the point of the switch rather than the light itself, and then you could also achieve this smart light. So personally, I'm using the Tuya Smart Life compatible light switch. I bought it for around $30 as well. For this one, right, I would rate the ease of installation a lot lower. I'll probably mark it at a 2.5 out of 5. That's because, right, I ran into a couple of problems while trying to do it. Initially, it didn't work because I didn't follow the instructions fully, and I didn't install that capacitor into the actual light itself. So yeah, there's a lot more components involved with setting up the smart light switch, the smart wall light switch, right? And I would think that if you are doing it in a new home, I'll probably recommend you to get the contractor or electrician to just do up the entire house with these switches instead of trying to DIY it. But of course, if you're game for an adventure, feel free to try it out, but do remember to take the necessary precautions and stay safe. Outside of the smart light switches, right, you could get a variety of sensors that you could make use of to add to the possible automations that you could do. For example, a door or window sensor would be really useful if you want to detect whether a window is open or whether someone opened your door. Sometimes you could use this for security reasons, like getting a notification if someone accessed your room or accessed your house main door, etc. Or you could also use it to automate certain things, like if I open my window, I'll automatically turn off my aircon and turn on my fan. That's also something you could possibly do. On top of the door and window sensors, you could also get motion sensors to turn on and off a light, for example, when you walk into a room, or light sensors where maybe if the light, well, you could put it one out outside the window, and when the light outside gets dark, the room lights start to turn on, for example. So most of these sensors tend to be relatively affordable, but do know that a lot of these sensors would require the use of a gateway, because most of them are not Wi-Fi compatible, like I mentioned previously. They would be running off like ZigBee or Z-Wave or RF423, so you would require buying that gateway as well. So there are a lot of other products that you could also purchase to control other parts of the house or other devices, like for example the curtains, the robot vacuum, the humidifiers with or air filters with the smart portion built in, and etc. I think the best way to really discover a lot of these would be to scroll through the home app. So maybe a good idea would always be to start with something and then progressively start to buy more and more items within that ecosystem and explore what other things it has. You don't have to buy everything in one shot, you can start to try them out progressively. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're just starting out with this smart home, I would recommend you to use the voice assistant that is already available on your own device. Preferably it should be like maybe the Google Assistant on an Android phone and Siri on an iPhone. And that will be a good place to begin rather than like jumping straight into buying some of these speakers, which could be a little bit more pricey. If you're using an iPhone, it doesn't mean that you can't use the Google Home compatible products. The Google Home app and the Google Assistant app are also available on the iPhone, just that you may not have that quick shortcut that you could use to summon the voice assistant and control those devices. But you could still try and find workarounds for that. For example, I've also played around with the Shortcuts app on my iPhone to create shortcuts to basically from Siri, I can command my Google Assistant to command one of my home automations. But a better solution would be to use something like Homebridge. Homebridge is a little bit more complicated to set up, and I'll probably cover that in one of my next videos. Of course, a lot of the fun also comes with having these smart speakers set up throughout the house. So basically everywhere you walk in your house, you can kind of just talk and command and things will happen around you. Kind of like the whole Tony Stark Jarvis thing, right? So if you are buying a speaker, the Google Home speaker that I bought, the prices vary. So it could be like from $50 and up depending on what speaker size you're buying. But do look out for sales and discounts, because I managed to get my Google Home Mini at around $30, but this was while I was traveling in Japan and because of certain sales that were going on. The final part to all of these, of course, is the automations. And without the automations, it probably wouldn't feel like a smart home. There are many things you can do. Like right at the start of this video, you saw me kind of waking up to a series of actions that Google Home will do for me. And there are other things also that can happen. For example, if I want to watch TV, go Netflix and chill.
Enjoy, Kale.
Right, and there are many other routines that you could do as well. It really depends on your own creativity and your own needs. I guess along the way when you are moving around within your own home, if anytime you feel like you're doing something manually and you want to try and automate that process, go ahead and give it a try. If you do start to feel limited though by the amount of things you can configure in terms of automation, chances are you're missing a trigger point. And if you don't have a sensor that can create that trigger, you can start to look elsewhere for more advanced automations as well. One platform that's quite popular is IFTTT, which stands for if this, then that. And this kind of opens up to even more automation possibilities. Like for example, if X happens, send an email. If Y happens, I don't know, trigger something to do with your Google Home, for example. And a lot of these could be time-based and location-based, etc. So it does give you a lot more options. Like you could even do custom Google Home commands that could trigger, I don't know, in 30 minutes time. Maybe for like your coming home routine, you don't actually want to turn on the air conditioner immediately. You want to go take your bath first and have the air conditioner start to turn on maybe at roughly like 10 minutes just before you start entering back to your bedroom. So yeah, you could get creative and try out all the different possibilities. I will probably do a future video as well, trying to cover some of these possible automations with IFTTT. Right, if you've been following along, you probably have a rough gauge of how much you might need to spend for your own home. But looking at this, like say a typical 4-room HDB, I would imagine that you would have an IR controller in every room, the living room and the 3 bedrooms, and possibly at least one light switch or smart light bulb in every room as well, which could probably amount to maybe another 30 per room. And it would be probably useful if you had, I don't know, maybe one of the smart power strips as well in the living room or in the bedroom to control some of your chargers, to control like maybe your laptop power, PC power, etc. And yeah, and maybe at least one smart speaker in the living room, for example, like a Google Home, and that still totals up to only around $256. And if you're starting with just the living room, it can be as cheap as just $58 for just one IR controller, one smart plug, and maybe one light switch. And of course, if you add on the Google Home, then maybe another $50, which amounts to about $108. So yeah, it is really up to you and up to how much budget you want to spend on this and what devices you want to control. Alright, I think that's all for today. If you found today's content helpful, do hit the like button. And if you're looking forward to either the Homebridge setup guide or the IFTTT setup guide, do hit the subscribe button as well and look out for that content coming to this channel in the coming weeks. Yeah, and if you have any comments, questions, feedback, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, and I would be very happy to read them and respond to them as well. So yeah, anyway, that's all for today. So thanks for watching. Hey Google, I'm heading out.
Okay, remember to bring a mask, Kale. Take care and have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Kale.